showing you how you can properly understand orals, basically, how they test it, the questions, where they come from, so that when you are reading for yourself, you can easily read what will come and not the contrary. I remember when we were revising back in 2021 for orals, we never had anyone to guide us. And most of us would read everything and anything. And we really struggled because we could not understand. And I remember most of us, when we walked out of the orals exam, we really felt cheated. We felt cheated because we had read for everything and only like 10% came. And we were like, we really wished we knew what specifically they look for so that we focus on that. Because the more you focus on a particular thing, the higher your chances of passing it. Now, I'm going to share my screen so that I can just show you quickly, basically the basics of everything. So I'm going to show you the basics of everything. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen immediately. So once you're able to see clearly, let me know. If you can be able to see the document, you can let me know so that I can proceed. Just a minute, DMD. You can see the document?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so I'm just going to show you, basically the first chapter of this book, because it talks about, now it talks about the first part which you must understand. Before even you start reading, before you start focusing on a particular subject, you must understand this particular thing. Now, we are going to jump right into it. Up here, just a minute, up here, nimeandika why passing the bio exams is very important. Let me just repeat it for the last time. The orals exams. Let me just repeat it for the last time. Orals exams are very crucial. Don't overlook them. How do they calculate it? They calculate, in the end of the day, the more marks you have in project, the more marks you have in orals, the easier it will be for you to get your 9-piece. So if you really want to easily get your 9-piece, there's someone who has unmuted. Just a minute. Someone who has unmuted. Okay. She has muted. Yeah, so basically, let me just show you how they calculate it. Let me show you how they calculate it. So if you're in that page, I've scrolled, how they normally calculate the total marks in CLE. They take the project marks, which is 20. They add the oral marks, which is 20. Then the exam marks is 60. Oral exams is a must to pass. I will really wish if all of you will pass it with us. Ukipata 15, you're very safe. Because if you get 15 in orals, 15 in project work, it means in exams you're only looking for 25 marks or 20 marks and you get your 9-piece. So number one, passing the orals exams is very important. Some people tend to overlook it. There was someone who was telling me recently in my inbox that anataka tu kufunzwa kitu inakuja CLE, hataki orals. And I told them, in the end of the day, they're going to add all those marks. So it's better for you to pass something you can control than something you can't control. Because you see CLE uko mbele ujui itakuwaje. Not last year, this year, the exams were quite, I can say they were quite fair. On a scale of 1 to 10, they were around 7 out of 10. They were not that hard, this year's paper. So you can never know which year, kama for example, 2020 2022, it was quite tough, very tough. So passing oral exams is very crucial, very, very crucial. Now we are going to scroll to the nature. What is the nature of oral exam? In the end of the day, you have to understand that oral exams, you're going there for 10 minutes. They'll ask you questions for those 10 minutes. The lecturers watakuwa wawili, one lecturer of a different unit, the other one of a different unit. Personally, I managed to get Odera of conveyancing. The other one, I don't remember his name, but he was the teaching commercial transaction. I was able to get both of them. So 5 minutes for this one, 5 minutes for this. What do they test basically? They try to test whether the first term na second term yenye umesoma umeelewa kitu. That is what they normally want to see. Do you really know what is going on in class? Are you keen? Is this student understanding what he or she is learning? Because you see, one of the few questions they normally ask there. One of the few questions, let me just scroll up here, uone, kwa table of contents. Kwa table of contents, there's somewhere I've written here in my book, petty oral exams, questions and answers. These are the petty questions that I ask. For example, hapa penye nimewambia orals, they are trying to test whether you've understood term 1 and term 2. One of the petty questions they normally ask, and you'll be asked, they normally ask you, where have you reached in, let's say, kama umpata lecture of conveyancing, they tell you, where have you reached in your conveyancing syllabus right now? To make matters worse is if you find a lecturer who teaches you. Because the moment you find that he teaches you, he will ask you very personal questions about his class. Me, for example, Odera was teaching me conveyancing. So the first question he asked me was, what topic did I teach on the last before you went for a break? And I was there perplexed, not remembering. But luckily enough, I just guessed, and luckily it was ilikuwa correct because I told him charges and what have you, and he was like, wow, okay, you're keen, but I was literally guessing. So one of the petty questions, as I've said here, is they normally ask you what syllabus, where in the syllabus have you reached? They even ask you a petty question like, what did the project work for trial advocacy talk about? So they ask you things like those. Like in only the first few seconds. So what are oral exams? They basically, it's a procedure used to assess students' knowledge and understanding. What do they test? They test you on 4 different things. And basically what they test on is quite wide, such that kama ujui specifically what you are reading for, you'll really suffer in front there. Okay? They'll go for the cases. They'll ask you cases. They'll go to the 9 ATP units, not the whole syllabus, hapana. Kwa hiyo course outline, wanakuanga na course outline zao. They know where every class has reached. So they cannot ask you beyond, hawezi kuja kuuliza huku chini kitu hujaisoma. So they'll ask you 9 ATP units, anywhere there. They'll ask you about now LLB. There's this knowledge about LLB they always ask about, the LLB knowledge about contract law, criminal law, constitutional law. They can decide to ask you about that to test whether you understand. Another thing they normally test is current affairs. This is basically what oral exams entail, current affairs. For example, it was, I'm not yet, I'll be predicting, I think probably by next week, Friday, I'll be predicting what I think might come. And one of the few things you would be advised when orals are close is current affairs. Just know current affairs. They'll ask you questions like, for example, the DPP versus the DCI, that tussle about prosecutorial powers. I think you're handling something of the sort in criminal litigation. So the current affairs, they'll ask you, someone will, if you will even ask your colleague from the previous class, he will tell you, this current affairs, jaribu kuzijua. They will ask you things about cases about Okia Mtata and what have you. But anyway, we'll get to that when we begin now the in-depth revision. But basically, that is what you should expect. That is what you should open up your mind to expecting. So the better you expect such, the better you'll read for it. So that is basically what are oral exams. What happens in the exam room? Very simple. You go inside, you're told to stand there. They look at you. They tell you to introduce yourself. The panel, there are two of them. They introduce themselves. Sometimes they even ask you, they'll ask you, uko class gani? If you're in the same class as that lecturer, they will ask you, the lecturer will ask you, so what's my name? I teach your class, what's my name? So remember also, another petty thing you should know is your lecturer, how he looks. Personally, and my fellow students, the class of 2021, we were being taught online. And there's a good number of us who really struggle to answer this question. Because when you're learning online, kushika sura ya lecture ilikuwa ngumu compared to physically. So when exams were closed, some of us had to literally, every unit, unaenda una watch kidogo, you confirm, this guy looks like this, okay. So that when you're called in, when you're asked such a question, you answer. Personally, I was asked such a question. So Odera likes asking such petty questions. So if you're in his class, kindly ensure you've crammed his face. After that, they look at your dress code, okay? Ensure that your color is dark. Your colors should always be dark. 5 minutes, each lecturer will have 5 minutes, and they will ask you questions. Remember, if the lecturer tells you to pick any unit, pick, don't fear. Personally, I was given that option. Commercial transactions, the lecturer told me, hey, I can see Odera has really grilled you. And I said, yes. So he told me, now I'm going to give you a chance of redemption. I want you to pick any unit that you want me to ask you a question from. Because it's like he noticed Odera was really on my neck. And I don't know why I was foolish enough. I just told him, just ask me in commercial transaction. I think probably because I was proud. I didn't want him to think I'm not ready for commercial. But I really felt like if I would have said travel advocacy, I would have gotten everything he asked me. He asked me 5 questions, I got 4 out of 5. The 5th one I was unable to clearly answer. But luckily enough, I got 4 from those 5. So guys, the lesson there is, if they ask you where, tukuulize any unit gani, choose the easiest. Don't be afraid. Choose the easiest. Now, but we'll get down to the questions that I was asked when we get down to the breakdown and what have you in the next class. So basically that is what happens. After you are done, you're told go. Okay. So about the suit, they also ask you a question about your suit. Some lecturers like asking you, especially if your suit is funny looking, or if you look outstandingly good, they ask you, why did you dress like this? Why did you wear this suit? Okay. So why did you wear this suit? You have to understand that the LSK guidelines require an advocate to wear a dark suit. It has to be dark. Now, basically that is what happens in the exam room. What do examiners test? Now, this is where now I'm getting now to teach you now what they test, so that ukienda kusoma hausomi vitu zako. What do examiners test really? Number 1, knowledge in law. Do you know the exact legal provision? Okay. I remember Odera will tell me, he told me a story about judicial review. Okay. He told me I was expelled from KSL. So what do you do? What will you do? Okay. Under which laws? Which statute will you use? So they're testing you on the knowledge of the law. Do you understand the exact legal provision? So I told you in the other class last week, I told you, in the end of the day, if you don't remember the specific section, always know the statute and the principle. So if you're in such a scenario and you cannot be able to remember the exact statute, ujui ni which section, ujui ni which article, just remember the statute and the principle. So to some level, it also gives you marks. That is one of the few tips we were even told when we were sitting for CLE by exams. Ukifika kwa exam unaona umechanganyikiwa, ukumbuki ni section gani, but unakumbuka inasema nini. You see, something like probate, people confuse. You can see like probate has so many sections you have to mention for reasonable provision and what have you. So always remember, don't just be like, don't give up. Give that statute, give that principle if you cannot remember the exact section. That is number one, knowledge of the law. They want to see, are you knowledgeable in the law? Number two, understanding of the law. Do you understand the law? Actually, this is the this is the main point. If I was to advise you about orals, I will tell you, always ensure uelewe. Sababu hapa wana test kuelewa kwako. They really test, do you understand? Because as I said, you'll see in this book, huko ndani, kwa wale washasoma hii book, wanajua huko ndani nimesema, you have to understand for you to be able to answer majority of the oral questions. Because they'll ask you the application question. For example, like I told you, Odera told me, look, you've been expelled from KSL. You've not been told any reason. What will you do? You see, if you don't understand the law, even if you know that, even if you have knowledge of the law, even if you know that the law says this in this section, in this article, even if you have knowledge, if you don't understand the concepts that they're testing, if you don't understand that this law applies here, you'll be perplexed. I remember he asked me, I took like around 5 seconds to think. I nikaload hivi, nikakumbuka wa, this KSL has acted ultra-vires. Okay? So what do we do when a body has acted beyond their means or has abused their power? What happens? Immediately I knew this is a judicial review proceeding. And I answered. So basically you have to understand. So don't read to cram. Naona hizi maswali wametuma. Kwa hizi groups zenu, kuna hadi maswali zenye for example, I was compiling last year for your previous predecessors. I think you've seen the PDF. If you have not seen it, I'll send it to the group. Someone will remind me in the group. Kuna hizo maswali nimeweka hapo. I think there are around 350 questions. The moment you go to cram those past papers without understanding, hapo ndani utaumia. Okay, that's why personally I've offered, I'll be going through those past papers, making you understand. I'll be setting them in form of application questions in the class, so that tukizi revise na kurevisisha kama lecturer na sika student, ndo kufika hapo akikuuliza tu, what do you do when this happens, you are like, unajibu haraka. So it's very important for you to understand what you're going to read. The reason why also I've said in my class I'm going to teach you the unit, like topic, nitakuwa pia nenda na topics, ni juu it will help you understand, because I'll be doing a speed revision. The first few minutes na chapa topic moja, alafu tunaenda Q&A. Topic moja, Q&A. So that by the time orals inafika, kama unajua hujaelewa kitu kwa hiyo darasa yako. So I know there are a lot of people, let's be honest, there are a lot of people by now, they are not 50% ready for orals, or rather kitu umefunzwa tangu mwanzo hadi sai uko tu na 50% kwa kichwa, the rest 50 hujui ama hujaelewa ama bado hujakram. So that's why I'll be having a speed revision to help you understand these topics quickly. Okay, now the third thing that examiners want to test in oral exams is the application of the law. So knowledge, do you know it? Understanding, do you understand what you know? And number three, do you know how to apply it? Okay, so mimi nikisema ni judicial review, now I'm showing that I need to apply. Then they ask me, how will you know what they got? Okay, because those are the type of questions they follow up with, and the questions that they ask me. He told me even what remedy will you seek? Okay, these are the things we'll be expounding on in class. What remedies will you seek? Okay, yeah. So that is basically what they test. So the moment you understand that, the better. What references do examiners use to set and ask oral exams questions? This session is very important because it helps you now. Unaelewa, ukienda kurevise unasoma aje. Usiende tu kusoma for, you must have a strategy. In life, it's either you work hard or you work smart. Most of the times, people who work smart are the ones who go far. Look here, kuna 5 things that are normally referred to when they are setting. Okay? The first one is always the course outline. And I remember I saw it even though they were elevated in my panel room, I could see that Odera had one. They normally have something like a course outline, just a sheet that shows them basically the basics. So that when they want to ask you, they just look at topic gani hapa naweza uliza huyu, and they ask just like that. So number one, your first guide should be the course outline. The second guide is the constitution. It's very important. You have to understand. There are some sections, not sections, some articles in the constitution you must know. Just look, let me just show you here. And I've included it here in the book. I've said 10 constitutional articles to cram. Okay? There are some articles it's just important for you to cram, or rather to understand. You know, some people don't like the word cram. Use whatever strategy you have to. But the constitution, there's some things you have to cram, or rather understand. Okay? For example, you have to understand basically something like the right to privacy. Those are the common ones that you must know. Right to own property. Something like how the constitution recognizes international treaties. Those are the types of things. Sitaki ku get into them sana. Sababu hizo ni vitu tutakuwa tunasoma sasa. So these constitutional articles are very important. I will just advise you to cram at least 10, or rather to understand them. Okay? Another article you must understand is the one that gives the court authority to grant a remedy. Something like that, it's very important. Ukienda kurevise vitu kama hizi, zinafaa sasa zianze kuwa kwa fingertips. Okay? So the constitution, does this guy understand the constitution? Because Odera asked me, what are the remedies? Which article will you come with it? Which article gives you even that right to do that? So you must know that constitution is very important in your revision. The good thing in easy vitu ukizilist two down, revision will be very easy because you'll now focus on specific things. So the course outline, the constitution, then now the statute. In civil litigation, okay, you must know the statutes. In criminal, in a forgery statutes, gani zina apply. You must know the CPC. And what have you? Just a minute, let me drink some water. So across all these 9 units, you must know which statute applies where. Even if you cannot cram every section, just understand which statute applies where. And if you're surprised with a question, you can easily answer. Okay? In this book also, I've mentioned now the statutes. Hizi statutes kwa probate, hizi statutes ndo zinakuanga most probable kukuja. Okay? Something like a reasonable provision in probate, you have to you just try and understand and even cram that statute. So basically, the statutes also, they try to see that this guy know. Okay? They like testing the what is it called? The procedure in civil and criminal. Okay? Anyway, we'll get down to it. So for today, I just want you to now understand, I want you to understand the beast that you're about to face. You see, you cannot go to fight an enemy you don't understand their strength or their weakness. So ndo tukianza revision unaelewa at least hizi ndo vitu nafaa nijue. Then there's the case precedents, the cases, they really ask cases. If you look in this book, I've also mentioned how many cases. I think I've mentioned 10 case precedents, the most common that they ask. Okay? They test you on, a good example is the conflict of interest case. Okay? Like Kaplan and Stratton advocates. That one is a very common case. Lazima uishike tu. And it's very simple. That's why I'm categorizing them into 10-10. Because the moment you know the moment you have enough knowledge of everything, hapo ndani, you'll be smiling, literally. So there are cases that you must know. Okay? A good case you must also know, and I'm sure it will come in one of your orals, the last year's petition. Those things that are relevant, very important. The last year, the electoral petition, the election petition, very important for you. So when you're going, let me now show you. When you're going to revise a case, don't revise don't delve so much into the fact. Just delve into the important principle that was established. Okay, just look at a case. What is EKC? Most of the time they don't ask you what are the facts of the case. No, the lecturer just tells you, okay, quote one case and why is it relevant here. So always when you're going to read for a case, just look for the principle. When you're revising for orals, look for the principle the case establishes. Okay, a good example of a very common case law that they ask you is the minor Kiai case. Okay, the minor Kiai case, and the main principle that was established in the minor Kiai case, utaiona wapi? Ilitokea last year kwa election petition, whereby it said basically the results at the polling station are final. It established that major principle that was quoted a lot of times by now the Kenya. It was quoted a lot of times by the Kenya Kwanza team because according to them, they felt like the polling station. So basically, these are the principles that you should actually, let me not use the word cram. I don't know why I like that, but yes, those are the principles you should understand. Have them in your fingertips. Those case precedents. Okay? And they are very, si mingi, kina Uhuru Highway, have them in your fingertips. So every unit, at least there are like 2 or 3 common cases that are quoted so many times. When we get into classes, tutakosa tunaongelea vitu kaa hizo. That's why I've proposed we have 2 classes per night. Because I want, by the time inafika Friday, ushajua kila kitu. You know something from everywhere. 1 month from now, we'll be ready. Let's proceed. So case precedent is one of the 4th category that they ask you questions from. Then now there's the legal books and articles. So now sasa kuna hizo now the books and articles, you now understand the provisions. Sasa hii inakuanga ya mwisho sababu they don't ask so much the books and articles. But basically kwa books and articles, what I'm trying to mean here is the different, where they ask you the differences, or they ask you to define things. So hapa kwa legal books and articles, they try to see, has this guy read? So for example, they'll ask you, what is the judicial review? Then they ask you, okay, tell us. Now, most of the time, let me now tell you the trick behind it. Most of the time, when they start asking you this short form question, it means when they realize application of the level. That's why I always tell you, Jari. And I noticed that trend last year when I was studying last year's orals. Like nikiona, when I was studying those students while they were doing their orals, when I was combining those together, I realized that when people are coming to my inbox telling me about the experience, they will be asked the application question. Alafu lecturer notice, 5 minutes hiyo inaisha bana, na ni kama hajapata kitu. So they eventually they now switch to the simple questions. They ask you what is the difference between let's say judicial review and an appeal, something like that. What is the difference between an appeal and a review? Yeah, hizo swali. So application is very important. So I've just listed these 5 things in the list according to the order of the importance. So course outline, constitution, statutes, case precedents, legal books, and articles. So it's very crucial. Those are the references most of the time. So kwa legal books ni vitu za LLB pia wanaweza leta and what have you. So how do they frame the questions? As I've told you, there's the indirect questions. They come in 2 types, the indirect questions and the direct questions. You must understand that there's the direct and the indirect question. Indirect questions normally account for 60%. I will say that based on last year's statistics. And even during my year, I will say 60% of the question, they try to see if you've understood. Okay. So for example, for the commercial lecturer, he basically asked me, I think, about perfection of a security right. I think that is what he asked me. How do you register it? But he didn't ask me directly. I don't remember well how he asked me, but he asked it in form of an application, like in form of a story. And I remember actually, if I was to be honest with you, that question I was unable to understand it. So the good thing about these lecturers, when they mention you can't understand, when they notice you can't understand it, they now break it down. So he was like, how do you register? How do you perfect security? And I was like, now I know this. Na nini ka flow kabisa. Majibu zika flow ku flow. So there's the direct question. You must understand. There's the indirect question they'll ask you. And there's the direct question now. Okay? Like, what is judicial review? What is double jeopardy and what have you? So ukienda kwa past papers, utaona most of the questions, actually utaona 90% ya maswali zenye ziko kwa past papers. Let us see it live. Let us just see it live. Let us go to the KINGMAKER drive. KINGMAKER drive here. Let us go to the orals folder. Okay, orals folder. I don't know if you can see it. Let me open one document here. Let's go to the 20, for example, this 2013. Okay. I've opened one of the, let me switch to light. Light, yes. I've opened one of the past papers that most of you I think have access to in your class groups. Nimeona hizi documents zikitembea. These are the type of questions zenye unapata kwa hizi past papers. But no one will tell you that they'll not ask you only such direct questions normally come like in 40%. Like 40%. Utaulizwa yes, one or two. But in the other 60% zitakuwa application in form of a story, in form of a scenario. So don't just, when you're going to use these past papers, don't just cram everything. Okay? Understand it in form of an application. But we'll get there. Sababu mimi nikikuja tukianza kurevise hizi past papers, nitakuwa na frame every question in form of application. So that I tell you now. For example, in this question 1, let me now show you how basically these lecturers do. The lecturers checked their course outline and they've seen that they want to try and test you on please. Ameona please iko hapo. So he'll look at you and tell you like this. He'll just tell you, so you said you're called James. Yeah. Okay, James, let me ask you. Your client has been arrested and the court session is about to begin. He's not sure what happens there, but it's basically the first time he's appearing in front of the court. He was arrested while stealing. Your client wants to understand what happens immediately. The magistrates comes, or rather the judge comes, depending on the court. So what will you do? What will you advise him? What will happen next? You see, what happens next is basically the first time you appear in court, there's plea taking. They'll read for you your charges and you have to take a plea. So the lecturer will try and see, jamaa anajua nini happen. So if you say plea taking, okay, so tell us, how will you continue advising, which pleas will you advise him that are available to him? So that's when now you come and say plea of not guilty, plea of guilty, at requires acquit. You see, the moment you have understood such a question in application method, kuijibu hata hapa ni rahisi. Ukielewa inakuwa rahisi. Anyway, so basically, that is what there's the direct and indirect. Let me look for one indirect question here. I think I've ever seen one. This one, you can't apata. Let me see if I'll see. And so most of these questions are direct questions. Let me look if I can see an indirect question in this list. Cannot be it. The most common that I normally see indirect question is whereby they tell you your client was arrested. What do you do? What is the procedure you'll follow? I can't find it here, but okay. For example, this number 46 is an indirect question whereby they ask you in terms of application. So they tell you the defendant is out, is nowhere to be found. How do you affect the service? So for example, yeah, sasa kama hii ilikuwa in form of a question. Okay? They tell you you want to serve the defendant, but he's not there. What do you do? Okay? Your client is out of the country, or rather the defendant is out of the country, or rather the respondent is out of the country. How do you proceed? So you must understand kuna direct and indirect questions. But the moment you understand everything, the better for you. So I was just looking at this document so to show you how the indirect and direct questions normally come. So let us go back and let's go back to, yeah. So basically you must understand both, but the best way is to understand the indirect questions, na ikifika kwa direct itakuwa very easy for you. So try and understand in the context of application. Hata ukisoma jiulize wanaweza uliza aje. But don't worry, I'll be remaking these questions, these past papers zikuwe in application format, so that ukirevise hata unasoma kama story. This will help you in both CLE and oral. Sababu in CLE they don't ask you direct questions. It's very easy. Labda swali moja tu utaulizwa direct question. In CLE they give you stories. Unapewa story. Kwanza last year, I remember, is it not last year, this year? The civil past paper had like around two or three pages ilikuwa tu story before ulize swali. So the better you understand indirect questions, the better you'll be. So let us look at the marking scheme now. Let us look at the marking scheme. I think some of you have access to the marking scheme. Just a minute. Okay, let me turn this. Most of you, I think, have access to the marking scheme. I think it's very common. It's a very common document out there, whereby they just the lecturers use it to mark. Okay, maybe it has changed over time, but roughly this is what they used to mark. They say there's the content, knowledge. Hello, can you see? Yeah. Hello. Okay. Sawa. Acha tuendelee. The tips, basically, there's this document where they tell you now about the content, knowledge, 7 marks, presentation, etiquette, audibility, composure. This document, I think everyone has it. Imetembea kwa WhatsApp group sana. So I think most of you have it. If you don't, you'll tell me in the WhatsApp group. I'll send you. Basically, it shows the outline as to how it's marked, how the lecturer marks. So as I told you, leo nataka tumuelewe. What is this thing you're going to face? How are they going to mark it? How are they going to set it? So tumemalizana na where they set it from. Tumemalizana na how the expectations they have. Sasa tuko na how do they mark it? Let me show you from the book, just a glimpse of the book, because in the book I've expounded on these things. Zote nimesema content. Hapa kwa content, let me just show you a glimpse, because yeah. So just a minute. So there's the content, knowledge and comprehension, presentation, etiquette, audibility, composure. Basically, that is the total mark. That is basically the total, the number of things I look for. So let me just expound on each haraka, sababu unaona time pia inasonga. Na nataka at least nimalizane na hii mambo ya introduction leo. Muelewe tu, so that you just understand. So that when I start revision, you just understand from which angle I'm coming from. Now, content, knowledge, comprehension, and application. Basically, they want to see, do you have content? Because they'll ask you a question and expect you to spew content. Is he mentioning the laws, the proper articles, the proper acts? Okay, hapo kwa content. Wanataka tu kujua, do you understand the question? Number 1. Number 2, do you have knowledge of the law? Number 3, can you apply the law? Sasa hapo ndo content. Hizo vitu nimekuambia hapa juu. It has the most marks, which is content, 7 marks. So the moment you understand everything, you already have your 7 marks. Now, let's be realistic. Sindio, tuko realistic. Tuseme hapo upate 5. Hizo 2 marks labda. You tensed, you didn't answer correctly, or you misunderstood. Already in content, you have 5 marks, which is perfect. Content, you just have to understand the question. So I'm just saying them in summary. Ziko kwa hiyo book, you may expound kabisa. Now, the second thing is presentation. Okay? What do you think consists of presentation? They basically look at how you're presenting your ideas. Unajua orals ni kama they're trying to see whether in a court scenario you can really perform. That is basically what they're trying to see. Can this guy perform in a court scenario? Ile knowledge tumemfunza term 1 na term 2 anaweza itumia kuipresent. Does he present like a lawyer? Does she present like an advocate? Does she have what it takes? So hizo ndo vitu yani wana test tu enye unafaa uelewe ndo ukifika hapo una present like a professional. You don't shiver, you don't know. Presentation is basically, let me just tell you what presentation entails. Number 1 is information. Are you presenting the information in detailed form? Number 2 is structure. Is your argument logical? Is it flowing? Umeulizwa swali kuhusu judicial review. Ina flow ama high flow? Is he understanding? You see, that is presentation. Analysis and interpretation. How are you analyzing? Use of relevant evidence and laws. They look at things like this. Is he using relevant laws? Because you can see in something like probate, kuna mtu unaweza stukia anataja CPC, anataja CPR. So ensure. Another thing is presentation skills. Are you clear? Are you lively? Are you magnetic? Okay. But don't worry, these things I'm going to teach you because unaona kwa table of contents, there's a place I've said this is a step-by-step way. Kwa book sasa in the Orals Made Familiar, there's a step-by-step way in which you can follow so that you can behave perfectly in front of the panel. I've just described to you how you can do. In case hauko sure unafaa ufanye nini. Okay? For example, let me give you an example. In the book I've mentioned, one of the few things is the FIRAC method or the IRAC method. Umeulizwa swali in form of a scenario which they ask you in one of your questions, lazima kuulize. Na hiyo ndio inakuanga na marks sana sababu inakuanga connected, the chain. I have advised in the book I've given, one of the tips I've given is when it comes to presentation, use the FIRAC method. Why? Number 1, in terms of information, you relay information very easily. In terms of structure, wanaona mtu ako na structure. Kumbuka presentation kwa 7 marks. In terms of analysis, they can see you analyzing it well. Umeanza na facts. Well, the facts of the case you're saying is, I've been expelled, right? Right, okay. The issue is whether my expulsion, or rather, whether KSL acted in according to their power, or whether they follow the correct process. That is the issue, I think, right? Okay. Rule of law. I think the rules that apply here is this and this. The concept being tested is judicial review. Okay. Go ahead. When I analyze this, I'll basically approach the court with this and this and this. Okay. Then, so in conclusion, I will seek the following remedies. I hope I'm clear. So one of the few things I've mentioned in the book, presentation to me, FIRAC method. And another advantage of FIRAC method, apart from giving you marks in presentation, it also wastes time. You see, in the end of the day, they'll judge you not by how many questions you've answered, but rather how many correct answers you've got. So hata kama umejibu maswali 3, like hata kama umeuliza swali 3 pekee in 5 minutes na umejibu zote, ko sawa. So FIRAC also helps you to waste time so that you usiulize maswali mzito mingi. Anyway, those are the tips we'll get into. Continuing from tomorrow, tutaingia kwa hizo tips sasa vizuri kabisa. Right now we're just brushing. I just want you people to understand. So, but I know some of you will not be in my class. Some of you, let's say you are broke, or rather you are engaged with something, you know. So the best thing I can do is just help you understand roughly. So that is presentation. Hizi vitu zote nime break down vizuri kwa the book. So just because I don't want it to lose the value, I will not just show you everything in the book, but at least I'll share the knowledge with you. There's the etiquette, which is number 3. Etiquette is basically manners, social and professional behavior. There are a set of formal manners that govern social and professional behavior. Okay? So you must behave professionally. Saying things like ati, pardon. Okay, pardon is good. Pardon, you can just say pardon. That is at least, pardon is something people say, just pardon, or kindly repeat, or kindly, yeah. So etiquette, they look at it. Sababu kuna vitu zingine, you see there are some behaviors we normally do every day. Each and every day, there's some behaviors we exhibit that we think are normal, but they are not. I remember, who was it Koki? There's a lecturer who was really tough on us when it came to etiquette. There's a lecturer of ours in trial advocacy. He was very, alitufunza vizuri sana etiquette. Because the guy will ask you, he will grill you, and he will tell you that is not etiquette. So basically, you just have to sound respectful. If you, majority of times, sometimes you'll not hear the lecturer. You'll want him to clarify. So usiseme just try to be courteous, try to have etiquette. These are free marks. Hizi za 2 marks. Hizi za 2 marks inafaa uzipate kabisa. Also in the book I've showed you ways in which you can, kama hujasikia lecturer ongea hivi, use these words. Okay? So that's etiquette. Let's go to audibility. Audibility is another one. Audibility is basically whereby you just have to be loud. Some of you are not loud. Some of you will go to party before. I remember there are some of my friends, they had their orals on Monday. On Sunday, ameenda kupati. Asubuhi mtu anaamka, sauti ilienda. There are some things you should sacrifice. Ikikaribia hiyo wiki moja ya mwisho, 2 days before the exam, just sacrifice some things. Kwa sauti, ushikwe na homa before, ukianza kushikwa na homa before hapo, mambo yako hapo ndani inakuwa ngumu. Because you'll not be audible, you'll be like, or you'll be just on your own world. So audibility, these are free marks. Easy to the 2 marks. Audibility. Now, in the book, I've given one of the few tricks nimepeana. There are so many tricks nimepeana in which you can use to manipulate the marking scheme to your advantage. I've said in the book, which I'm reading even right now, if you know you don't have a loud voice, try and move closer. Okay? Try and move closer. If you know you don't have a loud voice, use these non-verbal cues whereby you can move around a bit. I remember, in fact, I moved around a bit. So if the lecturer is there, you can just move around a bit. Let it be natural. Explain to him. You said, no, in judicial review, as you take 1 step closer, if you know you don't have the voice. Also, I understand that sometimes we might tense. Kuna hiyo tension unaweza pata. Hapo ndani uko like, hapo ndani uko like, unaogopa watu. I know there's a tension that comes with it. But always remember there's this breathing tricks. I've also expounded it in the book. There's this breathing tricks yenye unaweza pumua, which calm down so your voice can come out finally. Things like water. I've even advised in the book somewhere, if possible, because mtakuwa kwa panel mnangoja kuitwa, if possible, just carry a few tropicals kwa mfuko kama inaweza saidia sauti yako, or carry something that can help your voice. I'm advising people, usiende kunyonyea uko ndani. When you know you're close, because okay, you'll be around 15 people per panel. So you 15 people will sit separately. Mtaanza kuitwa mmoja mmoja. So 15 people mtakaa kwa hall, kwa social hall mtakaa, ama hiyo theater mtakaa hapo wote 15. Alafu sawa, number 1 ataitwa, kila mtu atakuwa na namba yake, number 2, number 3, hiyo na hivyo. So in my book somewhere I've advised people, hapo ndani beba snack 1-2. If you know you're number 15, it means you'll appear after around 3 hours. Carry a snack somewhere. When you go inside there, ukuwe umeshiba. Siende unang'ang'ana na lecturer tena unang'ang'ana na njaa. Hapana. So I've advised you something like a sweet. Carry a sweet. Kama unajua sweet inaunda sauti, beba hiyo tropical yako. Ukijua umekaribia nyonye tropical, sauti iundike. Kunywa maji vizuri. Anyway, so that is audibility basically. Alafu now Lastly is composure. Composure is very important. The more composed you are, the more audible you'll be. Composure is basically the condition of being calm while being questioned, because they will grill you, they will question you, they will ask you, hey, how do you do this? Okay, what is the remedy? So the moment you can manage to be composed, the better. Otherwise utajipata umechanganyikiwa. The reason why I'm teaching you this thing is because you're going to start to read for orals. You're going to start to revise for orals. And I would want you to practice these things kwa mirror, practice na friends. We'll be practicing it in the class. I'll be telling people, haya we, sikujui, ebu jibu hii swali, jaribu. If I was to ask you this question, I answer it. Just anyone to unmute and answer it. You see, hapo sasa unaanza practice composure. And I'll grill you. I'll really grill you. Those sessions, I'll be doing them mostly tukianza karibia orals. I'll be grilling people, I'm telling you, jibu, after it tunasema nini? So that the moment you're exposed to a similar environment, like the one the lecturer will expose you to, you'll be much stronger. Ukifika hapo sasa umezoea. Kingmaker alikuwa na kugrill. Umefika hapo sasa hata kikugrill sikiki tu. Unajibu tu. So basically that is composure. So and then the rest of the things, ndo hizo hapo mention, be there 9, advocacy skills are tested, be confident, maintain eye contact. Yeah, vitu kama hizo sasa. Eye contact basically iko kwa composure. Hata presentation, just maintain eye contact. If you cannot maintain eye contact, remember, those people are shy. There are some girls who are shy, there are some boys who are shy. If you cannot look at the lecturer in their eyes, which I understand is normal, always just look above them kidogo. Those are some of the tricks actors use. Just look above them. Ama focus on, just don't, unaangalia lakini uangalie. Hawajui uangalie. Yes, then there's the engage the panel. Yeah, just talk to the panel. Don't appear too overconfident or know it all. Yes. Don't appear overconfident. Though it helps sometimes. Yeah, it helps sometimes. The moment you're overconfident, somehow it helps. Sababu unaweza jipata una waste time. So akikuuliza judicial review, rusha kesi, rusha remedy, rusha, unajua it buys you time. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Try and waste time, but using the correct answers. Usi waste time na ujui. Usianze kupeana story ya jaba na ujui kenye unajibu. So basically that is what happens. Then lastly, dress appropriately. Of course, it's very important that you dress appropriately. Anza kutafuta suti. End month ndio inakaribia. 1st June inakaribia. Mid month, look for a good suit, a dark suit. They normally say, there's this notion that they say they like women when the women wear heels. Yeah, okay, they say that basically, but I think it's it's a very controversial story. But my female colleagues will tell me they will be complimented for wearing heels. So yeah, for the dress code, just go and look at the LSK guidelines. I think 2015. It will guide you. Usisikie hizi stories zingine. Mostly dark clothes. Wanaume msimix manguo. Usieke ile maua mnaekanga hapa. Kuna hiyo kama maua watu weka hapa ya engagement, ya harusi. Try to avoid those. So basically, guys, I can see time is going. So basically, that is what you just supposed to know generally about that. So as you can see here, I've said analysis of the marking scheme, tips and tricks you must know. I've given you one out of around 50 tips and tricks you must know before sitting for the orals, where you take advantage of the marking scheme to work in your favor. There's the what to do a day before orals. Kuna vitu zenye unafaa ufanye, like practicing. From this course outline, not course outline, this table of contents, step-by-step perfect example on how to behave. There's that good way yenye unaweza behave hapo, or ni mtu ako sawa. Those are the type of things I'll teach you as we go. This is now the exam content. Petty oral exam questions. Zenye nimewambia, where have you reached in your, mtaulizwa kitu kama hiyo. In trial advocacy, where have you reached? Okay, tell us about it. There's a colleague of mine who was asked, tell us about the last thing you taught in trial advocacy. I taught you. The guy didn't even know. He didn't even have a clue. He was like, Alphonse Musyoki. Like, Alphonse Musyoki closing statement. And the lecturer started laughing. Just imagine the lecturer is laughing. Anyway, so there's the constitutional articles. I've already told you about that. There's the president's definition questions. So when you're going to revise these definition questions, they'll tell you to define. Then last, there's the differentiating. They'll tell you to differentiate commonly repeated oral questions and answers. Sawa. Alafu the legal concepts you must understand. Now, I want to give a chance to anyone who might have a question. So about to wrap up the session. Anyone who might have any question, uliza, just feel free to ask. Feel free to ask any question. Yeah, just feel free to ask before we end the meeting. So is there anyone with a question? You can ask just on anything. Hata kama si orals, just ask on anything. But see in terms of content, leo tunataka tukuongelea the psychology of orals exam. So is there anyone with a question? Okay. So I can see hakuna mtu akona swali. So we are going to wrap this up. So we're going to wrap this meeting up. It was a pleasure teaching you about the psychology of orals. Sababu uki understand hivyo, your revision will be much easier. As I've said, I'll be doing 30 minutes one unit, 30 minutes the other unit. Napiga topic moja alafu tunaenda past papers, topic moja past papers, so that by the time tunamaliza hii session unaelewa from every topic kwa hii unit ndo swali inaweza kuja. So I'm going to narrow it down for you so that you know exactly what comes from every topic per unit. So otherwise tomorrow tukutane same place same time wenye watapatikana. We'll be learning about tomorrow will be about, let me look at the timetable. Tomorrow will be about professional ethics and advocacy. Basically, by the way, mkienda kuangalia hiyo, I would advise you, ukienda kuchora kalenda yako ya orals, ujaribu kufuata hiyo kalenda yenye nimewapea hapo. The reason why nimeweka hivyo ni sababu most of those units zinaweza ingiana. For example, professional ethics, trial advocacy, if you read them, you can realize they almost quote the same things. The advocates act, they're almost very similar. So when you're revising for them, unajipata una kill two birds in one stone. Okay, so try and follow that method. Conveyancing nimeweka peke yake sababu they ask it so many times. Charges, kwanza charges, conveyancing, charges, mortgage, wanapenda kuuliza kitu sana, but we'll get there. Otherwise, it was a pleasure. I think let's meet tomorrow kwa wale wenye watapatikana to deal na professional ethics na trial advocacy. Otherwise, since there is nothing else, have a good night. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll start recording in class wenye wamechelewa kufika.
Asante.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you and good night.